I mean, that's better. It's cold, so I have a sweater on today. It's a little chilly, but I think we're here. Hooray! Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Sasheen. Hold that thought. You know, hold that thought. I want to make sure that you all can hear me, so I'm going to grab my microphone because I think it'll be better for everybody involved. And she's back. There we go. Hello, hello. Guarantee this sounds better. Guarantee it. Absolutely. All right. I think we're set. I think we're good. Perfect. Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Sasheen. It is Life Unlocked episode 2. And if you're watching me live, say hello, 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 hello. Takes a few minutes for the comments to scroll up. So if you're out there, just give me a minute. Plug it in the cell. You know, there's a lot of really great YouTube channels, and I follow some and I watch so many various ones. And here's the thing, I like the ones that feel like I'm just having a conversation with the person who's doing it. So I hope that's how you feel when you listen to my channel, that I'm just hanging out with you over a cup of something good. Water's over there because I really need the water right now. And we're just chatting for about 30 minutes, talking about what it means to live with your life unlocked. So, for those of you who don't know me and who are just joining me for the first time, I'm Dr. Sasheen, author of The Anxiety Solution, as well as many other books on empowerment, meditation, manifestation, and living a better life after the age of 40. You may have come across me from several different places, so wherever you found me, I'm happy that you are here. And I welcome you to this page. So, what is this? This is me bumping against everything. My bad. This is the new video blog slash podcast, and we will have guests in a few weeks, which is exciting. So, tonight it's just me. And the purpose of this is to let you get to know me again, because it's been a while since I've been on. And so it's going to take some time for you all to find your way back and start having conversations with me again. And that's okay. I like that. We'll have a good time getting to know each other again. This is also a place for women. Men, you're welcome to watch. No problem. But it's really a place for women. I could probably take this off. It's a little warm now. To talk about what's going on with them as they travel into their fourth decade and beyond. And I'm pretty strict about this being a place for being in your fourth decade and beyond, because that's where I am. And we have our own unique set of issues as we navigate the fourth decade and beyond on the planet. And we also come from a generation that has different things that were important to us, and how that manifests itself as we get older is important. Now, for a lot of women my age, they are getting finished with raising their kids. Their kids are getting ready to leave home, if not already gone. But for some of us, we have smaller children because we decided to wait until later in life because we were pursuing other pursuits. So we're a unique bunch, absolutely a unique bunch. And I want this to be a safe space for us to talk about how we unlock our life as we navigate forward. Hang on a second. I have notes. Y'all know me. Ta-da! So, what are we talking about today? Two things. Giselle and the idea of guilt. And I'm really fascinated. I was having a conversation today about women, a women's channel, talk about women's issues, but women who've reached a certain point in life, right? When you're over the age of 40, society has this very defined way of how they choose to see you. And the prevailing wisdom in the past has always been, well, if you're over 40 and you're already married, getting a divorce doesn't really make a lot of sense, which is why everyone's always so shocked when people who are in their 40s and 50s get divorced, because it's like, but you've been together for so long. Why would you get divorced? Forgetting that you don't know what that marriage was like for however long they've been together. So, anyway, the topic for tonight is guilt. And I happened to be commenting to my friend I was talking to earlier, Cicely, if she happens to catch this, about how I don't think that Giselle has a lot of guilt about divorcing Tom. And I don't know why she should. But a lot of women have a lot of crippling guilt about things that they want to do as they cross over the cross through the door from 30 from the 30s to the 40s, because there's these expectations. You're supposed to be the sandwich generation, taking care of potentially teenage kids and off to college kids, and possibly parents who are starting to get a little bit older, and you're supposed to be self-sacrificing and all serving and all this other stuff. And so it just bowls people over and knocks them sideways when someone's like, I don't want to take care of these people. I don't want to take care of anybody. I want to, in fact, go off and open a flower shop, or I want to go back to school, or I want to, you know, travel the world. I want to get some stamps in my passport book because I never got a chance to. Because the expectation for women as they hit that threshold of 40 is that you're going to do some prescribed things. And when you don't do it, or you do it in a way that doesn't allow for much conversation, because you don't care, then you inspire in people a lot of attack, and you might even start to feel a lot of guilt because you're not meeting the expectations that have been placed upon you. So let's talk about this, right? Let's talk about what it feels like to want a life that looks different, but have the guilt that prevents you from taking the leap. Have this sense of not can I, but should I? Should I want? Because that's where the guilt starts, is in the should. Should I want something different? Should I want a new life? Should I be putting my kids in college and thinking about traveling the world? I'm supposed to stay here and be ready when they call in case they need to come back home. You know, the world's a scary place. Should I quit my job I've had? It's been our stability. It's, oh my gosh, what if I want to open a flower shop? Who opens flower shops anymore? People don't open flower shops anymore. Should I get into day trading because I'm, really, really love the stock market? But should I do that? Oh my gosh, what if I do things and people just don't understand? And because we get into the should conversation, we allow guilt to walk through the door, and we allow guilt to come in because we've lived our life. Our 20s are prescribed for us. Our teens are prescribed for us. Our 30s are prescribed for us. Our 40s are prescribed for us. There's like a prescription pad out in the universe that says when women turn 40, they're supposed to do this. And when that happens and you don't do those things, guilt is one of the one of the side effects of that. And I will say, not every woman feels guilty. So if this doesn't apply to you, keep it rolling. But I will say that there is and part of that conversation is going to come up that I had earlier. I will say that the guilt comes in when you have the perception of something to lose in the decisions that you're going to make. What do I mean by that? Let's talk about Giselle for a second. But before we do that, I want to draw your attention to the fact that I have no sponsors for this channel. There's no commercial, but I am running a workshop called Journaling for Anxiety Reduction and Energy Alignment on November 13th. It's going to be held during Zoom. It's a live journaling session. If you've ever had a journal, like to journal, like to write, like to use your journal to work through anxiety, to work through your purpose, to manifest the life that you seek, but you just don't understand why it's not working, then you might want to consider taking my workshop. 45 minutes, I walk you through a process of journaling that really helps you to hone in on the things that are important to you, make a good, clear, concise description for the universe to respond to, and then give yourself also a place to emotionally dump because you need to. This is going to be a fast-paced but very much Zen process, and I think you'll really enjoy it because you get to hang out with me live for 45 minutes. November 13th, there is a small charge, $9.99 will get you through the door, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. The link's in the description. Tap on it, and if you don't already, please subscribe to the channel. Now, let's talk about Giselle. Part of my conversation earlier with this wonderful woman who I absolutely adore now was how there's just not a lot of chatter about the Tom and Giselle relationship because Giselle has disappeared. And as I got off the phone with her, I really started thinking about how you can live your life unlocked and not have to feel guilty about it. Now, let's be clear. I get it. Giselle was a rich woman when she met him. She doesn't need his money. So there was none of that issue that was ever going to come into play. She was a powerful woman before she met him. So she didn't need his access. Proximity to power wasn't, I mean, it might have been fun in the beginning, but they've been married, what, 8, 9 years? Yeah, whatever, after a while. But here's the thing Giselle and Tom had a contract. And it seems like, for all intents and purposes, the contract got broken. And when a contract is broken, you don't have to feel guilty about what you choose to do next. The problem for a lot of women is that the contract isn't clear. And for so long, we forgive breaches of the contract, right? We forgive the breach. We're like, well, yeah, we only said we wanted X number of kids, but we had this number of kids. Or I always said I didn't want any kids, and we ended up having a kid. That happens a lot, right? Or we said we moved to, you know, Timbuktu, but we stayed in Pennsylvania because that's where family was, and we never did that. We said we would, but we never did. And so there are these breaches of the contract in relationships that happen. And over the course of time, women especially start to feel guilty for wanting the thing that was promised to them, the thing that they signed up for that they're just not getting. And as we get older, make sure I'm going to put up my notes. As we get older and the weight of 30, 40, 50 years begins to settle down on our bodies and in our psyche and our heads, we start to think about and remember and wish for some of those promises to be fulfilled. And then we start to feel guilty. Oh, I was taking money away from the family. If I chose, I would be selfish. It's selfish to want us to decide to pick up and move now, like we've been in the same house for 30 years. It's paid off. Who wants to sell a house and move to an apartment, a condo in Hawaii? Who wants to, trade in the Escalade or whatever SUV for the moped in Barcelona? Who wants to quit the corporate or the C-suite or whatever? We've got the dental practice or the chiropractic practice or whatever practice. Or I've been a nurse for 30 years and open a dive shop in Bora Bora. Okay, you see where I'm going with this, right? So for women, the guilt comes from the realization that I still want those things. I still have those dreams. I still want to reach for. And when I think about the ability to not feel guilty because you don't have to, because you feel like you fulfilled your end of the bargain, I think about Giselle. I don't know anything about the inner workings of their marriage, but I will say this: from the outside looking in, it is fairly cut and dried. There was a promise made, and that promise was broken. And the promise was, you are going to retire and help me with this family and become part of our family. And when he said, I don't really want to do this, most women in our 40s, because she's 43, 42 or 43, would say, okay, well, we've built this thing together. There's no way that I can tear this thing apart. The guilt of that idea of tearing apart that family would be too much for most women to handle. And so they just wouldn't. They would go, okay, well, I'll give it another year, or I'll give it another 2 years, or I'll give it another 10 years, or until his body is just worn out and he finally just comes home and sits his butt on the couch over there because ain't nobody else want him. Instead, I don't know if she went through an enormous level of guilt, but it would appear to me, from the outside looking in, based on what I've read, that there was a promise made, sacrifices made for the life that they live. Both wealthy, I get that, but still sacrifices made. Sacrifices made for the life that we live, for the 3 kids that I'm raising without you, for the life that basically I'm a single parent in. And the agreement was, you get to come home and help me. You breached your agreement. And I am left, as I look at my notes, I am left at 43 with unfulfilled expectations now. I have two options here. I can either live with my unfulfilled expectations and watch you march back out onto the field and play another game that I probably couldn't care less about, or I can say, you're welcome to not fulfill my expectations. I'm going to go do that for myself. And this is what I mean about living your life unlocked after you hit a certain age. When you hit a certain age, you should be given the right to fulfill your expectations. And if you are in situations where those expectations are not being fulfilled, for whatever reason, the promise hasn't been kept, then you get to ask the question that says, how do I fulfill this expectation for myself because nobody else is going to do it? And yes, that sometimes brings with it a level of guilt. But the level of guilt is only there because we should ourselves into guilt. Notice I didn't say the other thing, said should. But we should ourselves into this guilty place that says, but I should just be happy. Because she could have literally said, I should just be happy. I am Mrs. Tom Brady. Everyone knows who I am. He's, I think, the most celebrated quarterback in history, something like that. I mean, I'm not trying to slight him. I genuinely don't know. Um, but I have access, access to power, and I have money, and probably have homes galore and servants and people to take care of. Obviously, that's not what she wanted. What she wanted was her family. And I don't know that we can't take a lesson from the fact that what appears to have happened is he retired on a Monday. They had an agreement. He retired on a Monday. On Tuesday, she said, great, you're retired, fantastic. We have this life together. We're going to spend the rest of our days together, enjoying our children, enjoying each other, whatever the case may be. 3 days later, 3 months later, but technically in this analogy, 3 days later, so he retires on a Monday. Happiness on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. By Friday, he was like, you know what? I don't think I can do this. I miss the privilege of being the golden boy out on the field winning Super Bowls. And so therefore, I'm going back to my first love. And she said, oh, on Saturday, I'm going to file for divorce. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm going to do on Saturday because I already gave you 8 years. And somewhere in the 6 days, woo, starting to get really technically deep here. Somewhere in those 8 years, she understood very clearly her role and how much she was willing to play it and what her boundary was. And in our 40s, we get to say, you don't get to breach my boundaries. You just don't get to breach the boundaries that I have set. I asked you for X in exchange for Y. If you want to change that contract, you should have discussed it with me. And far too many times, instead of saying that, we say we feel guilty for even thinking that we have the right to say, you should have discussed your boundary changes with me first before you just decided that you couldn't handle the boundaries that we set for each other. And because of, I mean, she's got some, but we're in our 40s. A lot of us have some. We may not have, but we have some. And us Gen Xers, like, we're hardworking. We we are the pull yourself up by your bootstraps generation. We were the latchkey kids. Like, we know what it's like to have to take ourselves from point A to point B with zero supervision. Not even sure when somebody's going to come home and find us. We got a key. We know how to fix ourselves some food. We know how to fend off dog attacks and bullies walking home. We know how to navigate the world. And so what happens is that we 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 forget that we know how to navigate the world. We navigate it for our families, but we don't navigate it for ourselves. So this guilt thing is really fascinating to me because as I think about and I listen to women over 40, they just don't know how to navigate this feeling like, should I want what I want? And if the contract that I have with people that I've been doing life with for 40 plus years on the planet has been broken, do I have the right? Do I have the right to ask for something different? Well, you do. Absolutely. You absolutely do. When you're thinking about getting into your fourth decade, they say it's the midlife crisis. I don't think it's a midlife crisis at all. I think you're ready for a change. Who wouldn't be after 40 years? Let's think about brain development for a second. We know that we're a mess until about 23. Science has finally caught up and said, listen, y'all pumping these kids out into college at 18, they're still children, literally. So until about 23, 24, 25 for boys, for the male testosterone brain, a hot mess, literally a hot mess. And so many of us got into relationships, had kids. I didn't do that, just for the record. But so many got married, get married, have babies, get into careers that they hate, but they get there. But they're a mess. They still have teenage brain for years. Then you're in your 30s and you're like, oh, this is what it might be like to be like an adult. No. You're a mess in your 30s, but at least you're having a good time. You've got your friends, you're really starting to figure out this adulting thing. You've got some responsibility, starting to really, put some things together. Maybe you've waited and this is the time that you decide to start a family. That was me in my 30s. This is the time that you decide to start a family. You are a little older, a little seasoned. You've got some life under your belt, hopefully. And then 40 starts to approach. And you look back and you're like, gosh, I've done a lot for the past, decade or decade and a half. And 40 gets here. 45, 50, whenever it hits. And all of a sudden this feeling hits of, I've been doing this for a while. Is there something else I could be doing? Is this it? Like, is this all there really is gonna be? And the guilt of, why are you asking that question? You have a home and a family and a business and a job and a blah 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 and a blah 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 blah. And instead of having freedom to feel like you can ask questions and explore possible change within the confines even of the life that you've built, you get told to stuff it down because there's just no time for you. There's no time for that feeling. There's no time. You've got teenagers. You've got a husband who's going through his own thing. You've got a wife who's going through her own thing. You've got. And so the guilt that just eats at women for even asking the question of, should I have this desire? Can I live with the breaches of my contract? Can I accept what has been done and just keep on plugging away? This is why grandmas in their 50s and 60s get divorced. And grandkids are like, how are you getting a divorce? I thought it was perfect. No, I stayed because I felt like I had to. Because I felt like I was, oh, okay. Uh-oh, looks like we've got a connection issue. Yep, we're back. And so I think swinging it back around to Giselle and Tom, and the reason I think that she doesn't have any guilt is because she hit 43, 42, 43 this year. He hit 45. They're about at that place where is this all there is? He made a promise that this wasn't going to be all there was. He broke the promise. He broke the promise. And when you break the promise, you break the contract. And when you break the contract, that means I'm free to go do something different. So she went off and did something different. That's it. As far as I can see, that's really all that happens. And I think there's a lesson for women in this. There is a huge lesson. Guilt keeps you in a place. I like to say that guilt is one of anxiety's terrible younger siblings. Guilt, gaslighting, toxic positivity, over analysis or analysis paralysis, procrastination are all anxiety's terrible younger siblings. And guilt comes in and says, you shouldn't want for anything more than anybody else has around you. And if you do, you're a bad person. You're a bad parent. You're a bad mother. You're a bad sister. You're a bad daughter. You're a bad niece. Whatever the case may be, you are just a bad human being. And because you are a bad human being, you are not worthy of whatever it is that you think you should have. Who cares if they breached your contract? Who cares if you're not happy anymore? Who cares if all you ever really wanted was a home and a family and a garden, and instead what you got was 6 Super Bowl rings and Sunday night football and Monday night football and off seasons and preseasons and half seasons and whole seasons and back seasons and blue seasons and everything else. Who cares? What you wanted is not what you got. What you got is fantastic. You have no right to want anything else. And I'm saying that is bull. That is bull. I love the fact that Giselle has not said a word. She has not justified she doesn't talk about her decision. She's not making the rounds on the media circuit. She's not chattering about what happened between them. She is moving the on. period. And I think as women, we could learn a lot from the fact that when you hit a certain age, when you kick open the door of 40, and there are things happening that are not in alignment with what they're supposed to be at this point in your story, in your journey, you have every right to say, guilt, go sit in the corner. Go sit in the corner because I didn't sign up for this. And therefore, what you all might see as me having a midlife crisis is, in fact, me saying, this contract either will be get renegotiated or I will go write a new contract in a new way. And the guilt that we feel when we make the decision to write the new contract in the new way is moderated by the reality that we're in our 40s. We're kind of expected to go a little crazy. So why not embrace that and go ahead and go a little crazy so that you can stop living the unfulfilled life that you don't actually want? Oh, I could talk about this for the next 25 minutes, but I have promised myself to try to keep these at 25 to 30 minutes, and we're at 26 minutes already. I had more notes. I didn't even get to them, but that's okay. That's okay. But the last thing I will say is this, because I think it's an important point. I want to make sure I get to it. Whether you are in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, or 80s, when you get to the age where you begin to remember the life that you thought you would be living, it is okay to look around and be sad that that life does not exist for you. What is not okay is to be at the place where you are losing patience with the unfulfilled promises that were made to you, because that becomes unacceptable as we get older. Haven't you noticed that you have less and less and less and less patience for unfulfilled promises that people have said they're going to do, but they're just not doing it? And that's why I think it was a no brainer that when Tom Brady announced his retirement and went on the Great Retirement Whirlwind Tour, and then 3 months later was like, well, I kind of miss being special, that Giselle said, peace. Exit stage left, because we lose patience with unfulfilled promises. And when you hit 42, she'll be 43 this year, you get to decide, oh, do I have to keep having unfulfilled promises, or can I actually go and fulfill my promises myself and let you figure out the rest of your life for yourself? And anxiety and moving on and moving forward and unstable connection, you'll fix yourself where you won't. And how good it feels to embrace the life that you want, to keep the promises that you've made for yourself, even if no one else will keep their promises to you. When our in our 40s, we get to keep our promises that we've made to ourselves. And you know what? We get to make new promises. We get to make new ones. We get to say that contract didn't work. You reneged back when we were 28, and I just toughed it out until I was 42. Or you reneged back when we were 33, and I toughed it out until I was 57. I want a new contract, and I want a new set of expectations and a new set of promises. And if you can't give them to me, I'm going to give them to myself. As you get to that point in your life, I hope and I pray that you have a group of girlfriends and a tribe around you that supports your decisions. Because the guilt that keeps women stuck is the feeling that no one's going to understand if I make these drastic life changes, because everyone around me is doing it and they seem to be just fine. They're not. They're not. They're absolutely not. If they were, there would be no divorces. There would be no mass exodus of people out of professions when they hit a certain milestone. There would be no women saying when they hit their 40s, I really want to start that business now. They would just stay in their dead end jobs. Why not? They absolutely would, because there'd be no reason to leave. But instead, life gets to be unlocked and you get to rewrite your own contracts. Okay, I'm going to stop because what I wanted to get to was the idea of getting older and how that plays into the guilt. And I'm not even going to talk about that because you know what I've decided? We're getting older. And there are enough podcasts, magazine articles, Wall Street Journal, Business Insider. Everybody's talking about us getting older. Everyone talks about us getting older. Women getting older is a big topic. How we can be younger. 30s the new 40, 40s or 50s, 40s the new 30, 50s the new 40, 60s the new whatever. No. New contracts, new definitions, new promises. That's what's most important. That is absolutely what is most important as we hit certain milestones. And on that note, because we are 30 minutes in, and I promised myself to keep this at 30 minutes until I was get a few under my belt, I want to ask you to do two things. Number one, get yourself ready for your 40th, 50th, 60th, whatever decade you're in. Get yourself ready for your next birthday. Sit down and ask yourself the questions of, I'm going to be 49. What is my purpose? Where is my life going? Are there unfulfilled promises that I need to either work on fulfilling because I still want them to be fulfilled, or is it time to write a new contract and let them go, so that I'm not just wishing and being disappointed because I actually don't care about those things anymore. So why am I hanging on to them? I'm a big believer in not making yourself unhappy. And I think as we get older and the clarity that comes in your 40th, in your fourth decade, the clarity that deepens in your fifth decade, and the downright wisdom that starts to happen in your sixth decade lends itself beautifully to the realization that I just don't have to make myself unhappy. I don't have to do that. There's absolutely no reason to do that. And so, like I said, you have two assignments. One is just ask yourself the question: what's my contract with my life right now? Is it where it's supposed to be? Is this what I want to be doing? Is who I'm supposed to be with at this juncture? Are there things about my relationships that I need to tweak and change? I'm not telling you to blow up your world. I'm asking you to look at the landscape and take it all in and ask yourself what's next. And the second thing I want you to do is subscribe to my channel. Come on, this is a good conversation. It's a place for us to have the conversations that are important as we navigate through being in our 40s and 50s in the 21st century. We have so many things that are so different from our parents, right? So many options, so much information, so many opportunities, so many voices. And so I want to distill some of that down, bring it in, talk to you about it, show you different ways you can go, but mostly encourage you to live your life unlocked, because that's what you're here for. So subscribe to the page, leave a comment or a question. I try to answer every single one of them. You can find me on Facebook, TikTok, sometimes on Twitter. I make no promises, absolutely no promises. And again, journaling, anxiety reduction, and energy alignment, November 13th. I'll be talking about it again. Get in the program. You won't be disappointed. Have a great night, everyone. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.